What is up, sweet friends, and welcome back to another episode of Imperfect Success, the podcast teaching you, a success-driven perfectionist, how to achieve your goals imperfectly. The holiday season is upon us, friends, and there's been many studies that show specifically perfectionists, especially high-achieving perfectionists, tend to actually feel more anxious, more stressed, and more pulled thin towards this time of year. So today we are diving into the meat. We are talking about how to avoid feeling like that, what to do instead, and all the ins and outs of the holiday season. Let's dive in. My name is Nicole Baker-Holloman. I'm a coach for perfectionists, a high-achieving perfectionist herself, and a striver of imperfect success. Today, we are actually going down the time turner. We are going back a year, and we are releasing an episode that we did last year all about perfectionism in the holiday season. Now, pause, because I don't know about you, but whenever I hear, oh, it's a repeat episode, I immediately am like, skip. Here's why I don't want you to do that. Number one, a lot of you are new. Hi, welcome. It's so exciting to have you here. So this is a brand new episode for you. Enjoy the show. Now, if you did listen to this episode last year, I still really recommend you listen to it again. I don't know about you. I don't remember something I listened to last year, especially when the whirlwind of the holiday season is upon us. We are not going to remember something we heard in passing last year. So I really recommend you all taking a moment, re-listening to this episode, taking notes on this episode. I even give you some very tactical tools to have in a notes app on your phone so you have access to that very easily. But above all, I want you all to use the tools in this episode. Before we dive into the meat of it though, I just have a quick announcement. The Life Coach Baker Black Friday sale is upon us. It is happening starting tomorrow, Wednesday, the 22nd, and is going through to Cyber Monday. We're talking things from $7 to $397. If you were part of my Black Friday sale last year, you know having a wide range of price options is deeply important to me. In the personal development world, there's a stigma that you can hear me rolling my eyes about it basically, that if you basically don't drop several $1,000s on yourself or multiple tens of thousands of dollars on yourself, then you're not really taking the personal growth challenge. I could not disagree with that more. That's gatekeeping that is unfair to people who don't have that amount of money. And quite frankly, I've gotten some of my best coaching from cheap little courses. I'm going to be straight up honest with you. Now, don't get me wrong. The multiple four-figure programs have also done a really good job of kicking me in my ass. But it's not to say that one is better than the other just because you can afford one over the other. So please keep that in mind as you are shopping for this Black Friday, whether it's through the Life Coach Baker Black Friday sale or through other Black Friday sales as well. You can go to the link in the show notes to check out the full Black Friday offerings. I think we have about 5 or 6 things on there, all ranging from 60% off to 80% off. We did not shy away this Black Friday. We really went all out. And the link is in the show notes. You can also go to lifecoachbaker.com/Black Friday 2023. Now, friends, let's dive into the meat of this episode on perfectionism and the holiday season.
Today, we are talking about perfectionism and the holiday season. Now, for those of you who are not celebrating Thanksgiving, this might be a little bit early for you. Just save this and re-listen to this in a few weeks. Or if you are celebrating Thanksgiving, you might be like, holy God, everyone wants me to hang out with them. Everyone wants me to be in the family, Thanksgiving Day meal, but I don't know how to say no. Or maybe you're traveling home for Thanksgiving. This is going to be an episode kind of all encompassing the holidays and how perfectionism can really come up and bite us in the butt, especially if we've been doing so much work on ourselves this past year. And, we're okay, I'm feeling really good. I'm I'm tackling this perfectionism thing. I'm starting to get stuff done. I'm starting to think happier thoughts about myself. I'm starting to hold myself to less of that insane high standard. That's just impossible to meet. And then we go home. And there's a psychological phenomenon that basically is when we are in an environment with the people we grew up in with, whether that's, family, friends, hometown. These are called anchors. And when we can go back to those times, when let's say, your parents are still living in the house that you grew up in and that you had a lot of perfectionism in, that is an anchor. And what it does is it brings out a lot of that old thoughts, old feelings, or maybe your parents say a sly comment about you that would have totally set you off on a perfectionism spiral. And it's a lot easier to, let that happen during the holiday season because you're freaking around them all the time. Most likely, this is not everyone's situation, but most of the time, this is the situation. So this is an episode I want to talk about kind of all encompassing that perfectionism during the holidays. Again, whether that's saying no and learning how to say no. You cannot be at everyone's house on Thanksgiving or Christmas. And this is something, we're having to learn pretty hard this year as we live in the same state as two families. We're also, as you go back to hanging out with maybe some high school friends or some elementary school friends or going back to your childhood home. Again, how to combat that anchor, how to make it so it doesn't feel like you're moving 20 steps backwards during the holiday season. It's so funny because I was, and I'll share this later, but I was just recently doing a TV segment on perfectionism and anxiety during the holiday season. And as a, little journalist that I am, I was like, okay, well, what's the stats? I want to know some statistics we can pull for the interview. And I found one from Psychology Today saying that 40%, on average, 40% of people have increased anxiety and depression during the holiday season, which I was like, whoa, that's weird. And that should not be the way it is. But actually, that makes a lot of sense that is the way that it is. So, it's just, we'll talk a lot about it in this, but I just kind of want to give you all the brief that this might not be the longest episode we've ever done, but I want this to be an episode that you can listen to again and again throughout the holiday season, just to give you those reminders. Again, when we are in those anchors, when we are in those positions where, we're back with our parents or we're, staying in a childhood home or even just, it doesn't even have to be a childhood home. If we're just around people who's raised us, we tend to go immediately back to those old patterns or those old, roles we used to fill, aka child or, desperately trying to please our parents, which is what a lot of perfectionism does stem from. So when those things come up, I want you all to have this episode that you can listen to and be like, okay, this is what we're doing. That's right. Let's dive into the meat. So like I mentioned earlier, 40% of people experience higher levels of anxiety and depression during the holiday season. And it makes so much sense. We have higher expectations of ourselves. We think everything is going to go perfectly. We imagine decorating the tree or lighting the candles or cooking the turkey and everything being like this romanticized version. And in all reality, shit hits the fan. The kids start screaming. The dog knocks the turkey off the table. There's stuff that happens. And because of that, we tend to have our talons synced in even more when it comes to control. We also feel hella guilty around saying no during the holiday season, which leads to not a lot of rest and leads to us feeling like we're running around like chickens with our heads cut off. Also, falling back into old family dynamics or friend dynamics. Again, going back to that anchor, it really can feel like, I would have this for so long, my family, it's a family like anyone. And whenever I would come home from Chicago for Christmas and I'd see my sister and I'd see all these people, I would kind of fall back into that old bully kid. Not because of them. They never bullied me, thank God. But I was just I just immediately fell back into that state of just oh, well, I need to be quiet. I need to be small. I can't be loud. I can't, speak up. I have to give them space to talk. And I'm just at one point I looked at myself in the mirror before going to bed and I was who the fuck are you? What are you doing? This is not you. You've done so much work to kick this girl out of your system. Kick her out. She's not here anymore. And the next morning I was a completely different person and I kept that, but only because I kept reminding myself of it. It's not a one and done situation. And we'll go through that more in a minute. So really above all, the holiday season can kind of trigger that I need to be perfect for everyone muscle that, we're working so hard to, weaken that sweet, sweet muscle. Alrighty. So first and foremost, I want to talk about those expectations. when we are in that state of like, I have really, everything's going to be perfect during the holiday season. It's going to be magical. Everyone's going to love each other. The dog's never going to kick the turkey off the table. When we are in those really like high state of romanticism and high expectations and things start going wrong, we panic, right? We start to get like, oh my gosh, well, I need to make sure I turn this around and da, 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 da. And the name of the game, and a lot of perfectionists hate it when I say this, but to be honest, that's kind of why it's so important. You got to release control. During the holiday season, one of the reasons why our anxiety spikes is because we feel like we have to be the best. We have to be the perfect kid. We have to be the perfect spouse. We have to be the perfect parent. That is impossible. Things are going to go wrong. The kids are going to cry. I'm not here being like, lower your expectations. I'm literally saying release freaking control. Whether that means delegating some things. Like, I notice a lot of specifically women, but I don't want to say like only women, but on general, women tend to take on a lot more. There's a lot of hosting. There's a lot of, I want to make sure the house looks immaculate. I want to make sure the decorations are perfect. And it can be exhausting, and like, I really want to stress the importance of delegation during the holiday season. It does not make you weak. It actually means that you're stopping and you're asking for help. And actually what I've seen is, especially during the holiday season, people are willing to help a lot more. And why not take them up on that? It makes people happy to help. I mean, not everyone, but I'd say the majority of the population feels pleased and happy when they're helping others. It's actually a huge boost of dopamine because we're connecting with other people. That's like kind of a base human need that we all do. But really, when it comes to expectations, think of something like, notice that state of anxiety or that state of talent sinking in, needing to be in control. Find where that lives in your body. And that sounds weird, but I mean it in the way, like, literally close your eyes and ask yourself, okay, like, go ahead and let myself feel stressed or feel like I need to be in control. Notice where in your body tenses up. If it's your chest or your jaw or your gut, put your hand on there and then come up with a phrase or a saying that's like, I'm allowed to release control, or I'm allowed to not be in the driver's seat all the time, or I'm allowed to ask for help. Something like that where it reminds you to basically chill out, release, enjoy. Here's the benefits of this. When we are in control, it is impossible for us to be in the present moment because we're in that tunnel vision, right? We're in that state of stress and tense. When we let go, we're able to be present. And when we're present, that is when we're able to find that true fulfillment and joy during the holiday season. Not just during the holiday season. This is every time, but specifically during the holiday season, when we tend to slow down, or at least think we're going to slow down and want to rest a little bit more. That is how you do it. You have to release control. You have to handle those expectations in a way that reminds you, that's right, I'm allowed to ask for help, so on and so forth. Let's talk about guilt around saying no. First and foremost, we cannot please everyone. And I know that there's some people pleasers out there who are like, but what if I try? What if I try really hard? Can't I? You can try, but you're going to make yourself miserable in the process. And one of the ways I like to look at the holiday season is not a test. That sounds like a perfectionist, going back to school nightmare. But I'm more thinking like as a way of like testing the waters of all the work you've been doing this year. When we're far away from the holiday season, when we're further away from like these like back-to-back events and, big family gatherings or small family gatherings that we want to be perfect. When we're far away from those and we're in like maybe the summer or the spring, it's easier to focus on us typically. It's easier to build up these new patterns of like, wow, I'm allowed to release control. I'm allowed to feel really good about saying no. I'm allowed to put up boundaries. I don't have to people please all the time. But then the holiday season is where you really get to test the waters on that. And I look at it rather than like, okay, let me see if I get an A+. I look at it more like, okay, like this is an opportunity for me to grow in an immersed setting. I think the one thing that happens during this season though is this idea that, not even this idea, this feeling of guilt. If I'm saying no to people, that means I have to feel guilty because they're not seeing me, or they're not, I'm not going to be with them on Thanksgiving or stuff like that. And I want you all to take a moment and ask yourself, how can I reframe guilt? Guilt is one of those emotions that there is no upside to it. It is hurting you. It is hurting others. And I'm not saying that to be like, you should feel even worse for feeling guilty. I'm saying that more as, what if there's a way to make this guilt a more expansive, a more productive feeling? Now, if you're feeling guilty, I don't want to be like, shame on you. You shouldn't be feeling that way. But what I am saying is, what if instead, you said no, and Aunt June is like, oh, you're always here for Thanksgiving. You're not going to be here this year. What if instead of being like, you're right, Aunt June, I'm the worst person in the world and I'm so sorry, and da 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 da. What if instead you say to yourself, okay, this is me standing up for myself. That's me growing. That's a very different way of looking at guilt. What if it was instead, wow, look at me standing up for myself. Look at me choosing myself for the first freaking time ever. Look at me. That is growth. I am moving forward. Hooray! What if we were able to look at it like that? It is literally all of mindset work is just reframing. And there's this big, stuff going on right now about like, let yourself feel these things. And I do agree with that. But I do also think that there's a point where we get safe and we get comfortable feeling like shit all the time. And then it feels really hard to move forward because we're being told left and right, you should be feeling these feelings. You should be feeling these feelings. And you're like, but I felt them and I don't feel any better. I think that there's a way of honoring your feelings while still moving forward, while still choosing that, you know what, I get to mean that this is growth. Or even if we're looking at guilt, the absolute antithesis of guilt is gratitude. So if you are able to tap into gratitude, and it doesn't have to be right away, but even just like if you're able to move into a state of gratitude from guilt, holy God, your experience changes massively. So let's say you're not able to go to someone's house for Christmas. I mean, I am very fortunate that my parents and my fiance's parents live about an hour away from each other, but that does mean we choose one person to go to for Christmas morning and one person to go to for Christmas evening. And my family is very, very tradition heavy. We have very specific things that we do for Christmas every single year. So we typically go to my parents' house for Christmas morning and then Brett's parents for Christmas evening. And the first time we did this, I felt horribly guilty because we weren't going to be with his family morning of Christmas. And I was feeling terrible. And I was like, oh my gosh, like what what can we do? How can we make this better? Can we Zoom them? I was trying to figure out what is the way that I can make this as little of a burden as possible. And finally, Brett had to hold my hand. And he was like, listen, like, I don't want anything to take away from our time with either of our families. We need to be able to be present at both opportunities. And that is not going to happen if we're worried about not being at the other. And I was like, damn, boy, you're really good at this. And so gratitude is another way of getting in the present moment. Honestly, if I could boil the holiday season cure, quote unquote, down to one phrase, it would be get yourself in the present moment. Because that is when we end the holiday season. We're like, oh my God, like that was the most beautiful, magical time. Same thing with when you're going on a holiday or you're going on a vacation. Like, get yourself in the present moment. So often we're thinking about our to-do list and what we need to do when we go home and work and da-da-da-da-da. Especially if you're an entrepreneur, there's all these things that you could be doing and it's just impossible. So you will say no. You will have to say no. You can let yourself feel terrible and guilty about that, or you can start letting it mean something different. But here's my biggest homework piece for you if you are dealing with this. Choose beforehand what that new meaning is. Do not do it in the present moment. Do not do it in the moment of Aunt June telling you what a shit, niece you are for not going to Thanksgiving with her. Choose early. Choose now while you're listening to this, while it's fresh in your brain, what that new meaning is going to be. Whether that's I'm grateful that I get to stay present with this other situation, or that means I am grateful for choosing myself and for growing and for actually standing up for myself for once. Like, Whatever that new choice is, choose it now, because then it'll be so much easier to address in the present moment. Last but not least, falling back into family dynamics. Anchors are hard because they're so sneaky. We don't notice because it's so subconscious when we, just like it's automatic. I mean, I think about it this way, like if there's a song that you shared with an ex that is just like, that was your song, and then you hear it, you're instantly thinking about them. Whether it was a happy breakup, whether it was not a happy breakup, you instantly think about that person. That's an anchor. This is just in a location or a group-based setting. So if location, like your house or something like that, brings back a lot of old patterns and thoughts, you do that automatically without even thinking. But here's what I think is really important during this time of year. Catching yourself on those automatic moments is not impossible. In fact, it's actually with a little bit of preemptive work. I don't know if work's the right word, but I'm going to say it for lack of a better one. With a little preemptive work, you can rewrite those patterns easy as pie. So here's my assignment for you. If you are someone who goes back to family or friends or a family house or something like that and immediately fall back into those old perfectionistic tendencies, again, a lot of us are perfectionists because we were conditioned to be so from family members. But if we go back into those situations without pre-planning, we're going to immediately fall back into it. So here's what I want you all to do. Write out what are some common feelings or thoughts you have when you're either with this family, with this person, in this location, so on and so forth, or choose all three. So for me, whenever I would fall back into, going back to see my family, I would think my voice doesn't matter. I'm not the important person in the room. I need to make sure I'm giving everyone else space to talk. I need to make sure I'm quiet, so on and so forth. And if and I'm writing this out, I'm saying this, okay, this is what I'm noticing. This is what I'm noticing. What I am telling my brain is, hey, I am wanting to be aware of this. No more of that subconscious thinking. Instead, it is, I want to be aware of this, so catch me on it. When we physically write something out, we are so much more likely to not only be aware of it, but then have the opportunity to, once it's in our awareness, it goes from our subconscious mind to our conscious mind, which is where we make new decisions, which is step 2. With each of those things, write down the new decision you want to make. So for instance, for me, your voice doesn't matter turned into, I am just as important as everyone else in this room. My voice does matter. You can say something here and be honored for that. And when I was able to sit down and write out, okay, this is what I want to think instead. This is what I want to think instead. Now, did I just write it all out once and then go on my hunky-dory merry way? No, I kept that list with me during the holiday season. And if I ever felt like something's wrong, I don't feel right, I feel like I'm going back into old patterns, I would read that list and remind my conscious brain, this is what you're choosing. This is what you're doing differently. So if you are someone who falls back into old family, and that doesn't even have to be family dynamics, old dynamics, old perfectionistic tendencies, this is the way to go. So I gave you all 3 different tips. If you have questions, this is really meaty stuff. If you have questions, send me a DM. I am here to talk to you about this stuff. On Instagram, I'm at Life Coach Baker. That's probably the easiest way to send me a message, because during the holidays, I don't check my email, but I do check my Instagram. So go ahead and send me an Instagram on there. I'd love to answer questions or celebrate wins. Or if you notice like, oh my gosh, I caught myself doing this. Hooray. I'd love to celebrate you on that. Now, I'm going to go through segments actually really quickly, because how was I a perfectionist this week? And I have been sitting on this question for like 72 hours. And I'm like, I don't know if I have an answer to this week. And here's why. Because the goal we're celebrating, 2 major things happened this week. Number 1, I made my TV debut yesterday. That was awesome. It was so fun. I'm still pinching myself to remind myself, hey, this actually happened. And I took some time to really celebrate and enjoy and sit with it yesterday and like write out like, hey, congratulations. You've been thinking about this for a while and it's finally come to fruition. Go you. The second thing is over the weekend, this is a small story, but on Friday night, or maybe Thursday or Friday night, I received an email from one of the head of front of house volunteers at TEDx, excuse me. And they were saying like, hey, I know you're set up to volunteer on Sunday. Our head volunteer can't do it. Well, how much do you like logistics? Like, basically. And I was like, I love logistics. Count me in. I'll figure it out. And in under 24 hours, I was able to learn and pull off this incredible front of house event so that the speakers on stage just like absolutely killed it. It was so fun. And I'm just unbelievably proud. That was I was talking to my parents afterward. I was like, I don't know if I've ever been more proud of myself for just like learning and executing something. I didn't have time to be a perfectionist about it. To be honest, I was just so in like, I don't know how else to describe it. I was just being guided. There was something bigger than me that going on. And the curators at the very end were just unbelievably grateful. And it was a really cool way to break into the TED space. TEDx, as I have very bluntly explained on this podcast many times, is a dream of mine. And to be closer to that and not only see it from the back end, but to be able to talk to the curators and to be able to see like, okay, like here's what you guys need from here. Here's what you guys need from here. And to be able to see it not as just like the speaker, but as the whole organization together and the bigger mission was a gift I could not have even dreamed of. And to be able to stand on that stage with the TEDx sign in the back and get a few photos and stuff like that, it was just like, I remember the first time I walked into the theater the day before the event, I was like setting some stuff up and all that good jazz. But I saw the TEDx sign, I saw the Cherry Creek and the red dot on the center of the table or center of the stage. And I just like it was just like this, like, oh, it like overcame me. It was really, really cool. So I'm unbelievably proud that it was just drop of a hat. All right, let's do this. Let's do this thing. And didn't have time to be a perfectionist about it because I was being guided. There was something bigger and I trusted that I had everything it took to handle that situation, which there are a few times in my life, more so recently, but a few times in my life where that really came to fruition like that.
I hope you all took notes. I hope you all are going to be doing these exercises. Please let me know how your holiday season goes, especially as we go into Thanksgiving. We'll be doing more episodes on the holidays in the next few weeks. But my sweet friends, I hope you enjoyed it. Do not forget the Black Friday sale for Life Coach Baker. You can go to lifecoachbaker.com/Black Friday to save between 60 to 80% on courses, mini courses, and private coaching programs that I offer. I'm so excited for this Black Friday. It's always my favorite time of year because I love a good deal. I don't know about you guys. I love a good deal. My sweet friends, keep striving for imperfect success, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.